Overall, would highly, highly recommend Whoa, wrong book. I almost called this Kai, bitch. It got into my eye. My battery's gonna die. Oh, I'm angry. I'm so mad. Hey, how's it going? How's life? My name is Sophia. Welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going to be doing my best and worst books of 2022. Now, this year was a very mediocre, average year for me. Nothing really stood out to me in terms of books I loved and adored, and in terms of books I hated. As a result, I think I have 5 or 6 books listed in each list, which is very, very disappointing to me. I'm hoping that next year will hopefully be a better year for me in terms of reading, but we shall see how this goes. So in terms of the best books I read this year, the first one I'm going to talk about is actually going to be Kai by Vaishnavi Patel. This is a retelling of the Indian myth where we're basically following Kai from her childhood up until the adulthood and up until the events that the mythology is based off of. I loved this book so much. I really liked Kai as a protagonist. I was really rooting for her the entire time. I also really loved the world and the culture and the magic. In terms of the magic system, this is a very soft magic system, and we're basically following Kai as she learns to wield her power. The vibes of this story is incredible. You know that epic mythology folktale vibe you get when you're reading your story? I feel like that was replicated very well within this particular book. I just loved everything about it. I thought it was perfection, and I don't know what else to say about this because I just really, really enjoyed it so freaking much. I would also highly recommend the audiobook. I feel like the narrator has a very soft, calming and soothing voice that just really upped my enjoyment of this book. The next book I have to talk about is actually the only YA on this list, and that is going to be Blood Scion by Deborah Follet. In this story, you are following 15-year-old Salone, who has been recruited to join the army as a child soldier. And we're basically following Sloane as she goes through the horrors of fighting and training to get into the army. This is a fantasy YA, but it is based off of real world events. And as a result, this is incredibly dark for a YA. It was so dark to the point there were certain things in this book that I was not expecting. I really love Sloane as a character. She is incredibly morally gray, and she is willing to do whatever it takes to survive, which, given her situation, she really doesn't have a choice. And it was so interesting to see this character, who is innocent, become what she is towards the end because of her abusers basically forcing her to do the most heinous and disgusting things to survive. And throughout this book, we see these characters and we see their humanity being chipped away bit by bit, and it was very heartbreaking to see. The world building was excellently done, very immersive, beautiful. The magic system is based off of West African mythology, so if you're interested in that, I would highly, highly, highly recommend. The plot and pacing were fun and engaging, and they had me at the edge of my seat. There were moments while I was reading the story where I had to put the book down and I had to take a moment to breathe because my heart was just racing and the anxiety was through the roof. Overall, would highly recommend picking up Blood Scion. The next two books I have to talk about are actually part of a trilogy, and that is going to be Daughter of the Moon Goddess and Heart of a Sun Warrior. These are the UK editions. This is just the regular schmegular UK edition, and this is the Waterstone Special Edition. Look at how pretty. Look at how pretty that is. What can I say about this except for the fact that this entire series is the definition of perfection. For those of you who don't know, in this series you are following our main character Xinying, who is the daughter of Chang'e. And if you don't know, Chang'e is the moon goddess from Chinese mythology. Within this story, Chang'e is actually living in exile on the moon, and Xinying is actually forced to flee her home. But she promises to one day find a way to free her mother from her imprisonment. I absolutely loved everything about the Celestial Kingdom series. I believe this was originally supposed to be a duology, but the author is currently working on a third book, and I am hyped, I am excited, and I cannot wait. The writing style is very beautiful, lush, atmospheric. It had me sucked in. There were passages and moments that I had to reread just to take in the full beauty of the words on the page. Why was that so hard to say? In terms of the characters, I liked all of them, most of them. Actually, Xinying as a main character is incredibly smart. She's very resourceful, she's determined, and she is just perfection in my mind. I love her. I was rooting for her from beginning to end. Like, there was nothing Xinying could do that would make me not love her, okay? And I feel like the characters in this series are extremely complex. Like, even the characters that are very unlikable, they have a reason for being unlikable and for being the way that they are. And I loved how the author explored the character dynamics and relationships throughout this duology. Even the main villain of these first two books had a lot of depth and nuance to him that I don't see a lot of other authors often give to their more villainous characters. The romance, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. The romance had me swooning, had me clutching my pearls, had me gasping for breath. Like, I was invested in this romance, and it's interesting because it's also a love triangle. And I am not the biggest fan of love triangles. I've said this before, but I feel like love triangles have gotten stale in media. There's a particular formula to every single love triangle, and it's boring. Like, it's tired. Like, come up with something new. And I feel like the author did a really good job of taking a tired, overused, boring, stale trope and breathing new life to it, making it fresh. Love to see it. Also, the magic system was so beautiful, and I loved the way that the writing style complemented the magic system. Because it's based off of Chinese mythology, it's very whimsical, and it really had me sucked into the story. But yes, if you have not read these two books, I need you to read them right now. Angle might be slightly different, that's because my battery died. What's new? But the final book I have to talk about on my best books of 2022 is going to be no surprise to anyone, and that is going to be Babel by R.F. Kuang. Do you see all these tabs? I annotated the crap out of this book because it is perfection. perfection, okay? All of the books are perfection, but like this holds a special place in my heart. In this story, we are following our main character, Robin Swift, from childhood up until adulthood. Robin was born and raised in China. However, a plague ravages his village, and he is taken in by this colonizer to move to England. And basically, he is studying linguistics. This is a story about academia, imperialism, and racism, and how it affects marginalized communities across the globe. I loved everything about this. The way R.F. Kuang explores these themes is absolute perfection in my mind. And it's so interesting to me because R.F. Kuang is a very, very heavy theme-driven author. And so seeing how she explored incredibly complex themes from the Poppy War trilogy till now is always fascinating to me. I love the characters except for Letty. Letty is a bitch. Fuck that hoe. We don't like Letty in this household, okay? But all of the other main characters were so near and dear and precious to my heart. I may be biased. Victoire, Victoire, she was my girl. And not just because she was Haitian, okay? But Victoire was just so smart and intellectual and precious. And her dynamic with Robin, I was just shipping them the entire time, which this is not a romance. There is absolutely no romance in this book at all. But like, still, my heart was just like, oh my god, like they'd be so cute together, right? I also loved Rami. Rami was just like this sweet, precious baby. He was very sassy, quick-witted, always had something to say, very funny character. And then you had Robin, the main character, who is like an anxious baby. Like, he is just an anxious little baby that I wanted to protect at all costs. For those of you who actually might not know, this is a dark academia, okay? And it is based on Oxford in the early 1900s. And so it does have a lot of references to historical events, and it does talk about a lot of difficult topics such as slavery, imperialism, colonialism, and it heavily criticizes the British Empire, which was probably one of the biggest empires in history, if I'm not mistaken. Because R.F. Kuang does talk about a lot of difficult topics, and she explores these different topics through the lens of her characters, I was angry on behalf of my favorite characters. I was angry at a lot of characters. They pissed me off. The colonizers were terrible. They were, obviously the colonizers were terrible, but like I had a special hatred for them in this book. Like, they really pissed me off. It was also interesting how R.F. Kuang explored themes of white privilege. For those of you who might not know, you're following this group of characters in academia as they deal with a lot of racism and bigotry. Robin is Chinese, Rami is Indian, Victoire is Haitian, and then Letty is British, right? And so the way R.F. Kuang explored white privilege through Letty's character was so interesting. So because Letty is oppressed in the sense of being a woman in this world, she often can't relate to her friends who are racially oppressed, which leads to a lot of interesting situations that pissed me off. This book made me cry, it made me smile, it made me angry. It was just perfection. Like, what can I say? What word can I use besides perfection to describe this book? I was extremely hyped extremely hyped to pick up this book. This was actually my most anticipated release of this year, and I'm happy that it did not disappoint, because unfortunately a lot of anticipated releases have been disappointing. So that is going to be it for my best books of 2022. Feel free to comment down below. Let me know some of the best books you guys read this year. If you've reached the end of the video, feel free to comment a sun emoji for Heart of the Sun Warrior. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope to see you guys soon with another video, and until then, I will see you soon. Bye!